Welcome back, everyone. I am Friar Tuck, and this is the Army of Tuck podcast. What we're going to be talking about today is the dangers of homelessness. Now, you might think you know how dangerous it was. You might say, hey, I used to be homeless. Yeah. It was dangerous then, but not like it is now. Since the pandemic, if you are newly homeless since the pandemic, compared to what it was 5, 10, 15 years ago, it's becoming much, much more dangerous out here, at least from my experience, because, I spent a lot of my 20s on the West Coast. I spent some of it over here on the East Coast, but I predominantly went on the West Coast. And certain parts of the West Coast are like, you don't go. Like, I was on Skid Row. You're not supposed to go to Skid Row. I went to Skid Row, and I spent about 3 months there. It was definitely an experience, but I felt safer there in Skid Row than I feel right now. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the dangers of homelessness, one. And then after that, we're going to talk about what kind of solutions, whether you are somebody that just wants to help the homeless, that wants to be aware of the homeless situation, or that wants to, that is servicing the homeless. Maybe this can kind of give you a little bit of an inside look if you may not be completely aware of what's going on. I will tell you that having a dog makes things so much different for me, especially having a lab as a service animal, okay? Because my dog, Sam, she is a service animal. What is her purpose? I have an issue where I have too much adrenaline that runs through my system whenever there is any type of confrontation of any sort. And the more confrontation that I get, the quicker and easier it becomes for me to reach that point. Okay, what is her purpose? What is she supposed to do? What am I training her to do? Because I have a couple-year window of training her. You cannot train a service dog overnight. And unless you have thousands of dollars, you cannot get a service animal unless you find somebody that's kind enough to give you theirs. Okay, but then that animal still has to be trained to detect what it is that is going on with you. Okay, and having a service dog has opened my eyes on a lot of different things because it's amazing to see the sickness within society just by having a dog. Things that I've never seen, that I never would have thought of seeing. Things that I expected other dog owners to complain about, have never said a word about it because I guess it's par for the course. Unless you have something that is that is considered one of those dangerous dogs, like a pit or a Rottweiler or something like that. People will stay away from that dog. But when they see a lab, they can't hold themselves, okay? And, her job is to mitigate, and what I'm training her to do is to nip me because one thing that I've learned about dealing with this is that even when I'm not having the adrenaline rush, to be able to prevent myself, it's like a subconscious defense mechanism. I always bite my lip. That's why even if you watch any of the live streams I do on YouTube, you'll see me bite my lip. And as I'm doing it. And the reason why I'm biting my lip is because that amount of pain causes me to temper back what it is. It keeps me grounded in reality because there is a potential that without doing that, I could very easily, not really knowing my strength, because I have a little bit more adrenaline than I should in my system. That's why I can't sit still. I've been like this my whole life. But I've been learning about it. Okay. But I don't want to get too much into this because this is down into the weeds, but you kind of have to understand this to understand some of the things that I'm saying, because what's wrong with me is very unique, and a lot of people, they don't understand that when they come and they get into the middle of what's going on between me and my dog, okay, part of it is training, part of it is I have to desensitize her. If I'm yelling at my dog, most people, don't yell at your dog, I hope that dog bites you. Okay, well, you know what? My first sign that I'm going into one of these adrenaline rushes where I'm getting flooded is first I start yelling. I get loud. Okay, it's kind of like a pressure cooker, and that is my as a self-defense mechanism or as a coping mechanism. I let a little bit of that out so that I can keep myself grounded in reality. These are things that I'm doing without thinking about it. It's the natural escalation. Okay. I just happen to be an observer of what's going on because at a certain point, I don't have control, and I have choice, but I don't have control. I can make choices that will move the situation in a different thing. But if at any point in time, my subconscious decides that either that things are not going right, I could therefore get a bigger rush of adrenaline, which will then cause me to black out. And then at that point in time, I become violent, which is what I'm trying to get Sam not to do. Okay. So I don't want to go too long on this because the dangers of homelessness it's a big subject that we can talk about for a very long time, because being homeless is very dangerous, especially living out in the public. Okay, but because people don't know this, because what happens is when you live outside, you have people that will just randomly come up and just start interjecting themselves into your life. Oh, you shouldn't yell at your dog. Oh, well, you know what? This is part of her training. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Oh, well, da 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 da. That's not how you train a dog. You're an idiot. Da 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 da. Okay. Not knowing that I'm trying to train my dog to deal with what it is that I'm doing. And then what these people are doing is that now they're getting confrontational. And I start getting louder, and then I start shaking. And I am trying to de-escalate the situation in most times. Okay. I don't know. I know that in my experience, I've watched a couple of cops almost piss themselves when I go through it, because apparently my eyes turn pitch black when this happens. So you know how well, if you're watching the YouTube side, but if you're on one of the other platforms, you can't see this. But anyways, you have the whites of your eyes. Well, no, my whole eye goes black because that's how much adrenaline is in my system. Okay, and so these people are coming up, and what are the consequences for me? Now, these people are being combative and confrontational. The consequences for me, and I was told this 20 years ago, is that I could very easily end up doing the Thorazine shuffle in a state mental hospital because I'm a danger to society, and therefore I need to be kept away from society. And this is something that was passed down to me genetically. Work injury made it worse and is kind of what's made it so hypersensitive. But this is something that is genetically that's been passed down to me. My mom was like this. My little sister's so bad she scares the living daylights out of me. Okay, so you have people that are pushing you this way. And so now not only do I have the consequence of well, I could end up in a padded room, or I'm going to let this person steamroll me and possibly even walk off with my dog, or do other things, because I've had people try and walk off with my dog. I have people that try and call my dog. There is a plethora of things that happen just because of the dog. And I thought it was just because it was Sam and everybody thought she was pretty, but turns out she's a very common dog. You see a lot of yellow labs. There's a couple of people that think that my dog is somebody else's dog, and I have to point out the differences because, my dog is younger, she's fit, she's more energetic, and she's wearing a vest. A lot of these other dogs are older and fat, okay, and they're docile. Sam is not, and so on and so forth. Okay, so she's a very common dog, but the thing is she's a lab. And so I was complaining to the security guard the other day, and I said, hey, this is what's going on, so on and so forth. And at first he was like, well, what about the people that you're hanging around? I'm like, I don't talk to anybody. I try and avoid everybody at every I try not to. And he's like, and then as we're sitting there talking, maybe over a course of 5 minutes, I have to shoo 3 people away from trying to grab at Sam while we're standing there and I'm talking to the security guard because they just don't care. And then the security guard goes, well, really, you have to deal with this everywhere you go? And then he tells me this story about his blind neighbor. He had a neighbor that was blind, and he had a seeing eye dog, and the dog was a lab just like Sam. And he would take that dog outside to go check the mail. Well, people would stop and pet the dog and play with the dog and all kinds of other stuff. They would just come up and completely negated the fact that this guy was blind and needed this dog to be able to move around. And they just started grabbing and pulling at the dog and so on and so forth. And this guy is, you're blind, you're vulnerable, this could turn real bad, so you're kind of screwed. So what this guy ends up doing is leaving his dog in the house and blindly figuring his way out to the mail so that he can grab his mail because people will not stop touching his dog. Okay, so I thought this is something, and this is a danger, because I wake up in the middle of the night and I see people standing over me petting my dog. Okay, you might as well roofie me at that point, because that's how violated I feel. Okay, I got to deal with this on a regular basis. I have, not only that, anytime Sam and I have an interaction, there's always somebody that is constantly trying to interject. Society feels it is its duty and its responsibility to manage and tell you how to live your life. And if you're an independent type of person, like most homeless are, especially like me, okay, because that is part of what makes me tick, is that you are now going to start finding a lot more contention. Okay, there are certain instances where I am even seeing danger past that. When I was in Gainesville, about 2 blocks before, me and Sam heard the girl screaming. I just thought it was some crazy going off. I didn't even know. Apparently, this lady was burned alive 2 blocks from me. I got to hear it, and I just thought it was crazies, because you're in a homeless area. It's kind of what happened. Now, people will go out there, and the news will tell you that it is random violence, but it is not random violence. That lady may have done somebody wrong, including her dealer, and because she couldn't pay, he collected on her life, because she was now useless to him, because she was never going to bring him the money, and she was never going to get right, and he lost on it, and he's never going to get it back. And because she's so dependent, instead of going to another guy, he's just going to make sure she can never do anything ever again. Okay, and then you are also dealing with the racial tensions that are going on out here. Here in Cincinnati, I am in an alley that's over by a feed house and the shower house, and I got a guy come by. Oh, this is a black-only alley. Okay, this is a black-only alley. White boy, you need to get out of here and go home. Okay, there's a lot of racial tension, and it's getting much, much worse, especially with the summer of protests of 2020. That was a time when things were really, 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 really bad. Okay, and they're getting worse. I have been through cities. BLM has taken over certain cities where the police are not going to respond. Anybody can just claim vengeance and in the name of their skin color. And if you are of the right skin color, it is okay. And if you're not, it's not okay. And therefore, you have society. A perfect example of this is what happened this morning as Sam and I went to a feed place to grab breakfast and to grab a bag lunch. And I'm sitting there and we're having this conversation. And this conversation, he asked me like, hey, what's the breed of your dog? Oh, she's lab and Ridgeback, more lab than anything. But yeah, she's a little bit of Ridgeback in her. He's like, yeah, I saw a dog the other day. It was weird looking. It was a Great Dane and a Rottweiler. And I just was dumbfounded for just a second. I'm like, that's just weird. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, that's like a giant penis. Because, a Rottweiler, they're long, okay, kind of like a wiener, but they're taller, so they don't look as out of shape as a wiener, but they're still long, okay? So I'm sitting there thinking, man, because Great Danes are big and Rottweilers are long, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, man, that is a giant penis. And I'm laughing my ass off, and the guys around me, they're laughing their ass off, right? And we're just, because you can't help it. Dick and fart jokes, they always work. Dick and fart jokes will always win a crowd over, okay? And so I'm sitting there, and I think about it even more because, Rottweilers, they're black, and so I'm thinking, wow, that's a giant black penis. And I'm just laughing even harder, and they're laughing even harder, and I'm like, oh my God. And then this guy out of nowhere pops off and goes, you need to leave that last part out. I'm going to let this one go, but I normally get spicy. And I'm like, dude, try it, please. Please. But, the thing is I wasn't even really paying attention to what the guy said. It didn't even dawn on me what he said to me because I was too busy interacting with other people. This is a guy that wasn't even in the conversation. All of a sudden wants to, because I used the word black, I am now racist. I am now, open to get lynched by the black community. Okay. This is the racial tension that is out there. And I will tell you that within the house community, you don't have it as much. Now, the racial tensions in the house community is much worse than it used to be 10 years ago, okay? But out on the streets, it's even worse, okay? And so, you have the division, including like with the whole Israel-Palestine thing. You're having divisions, and you're having people divide themselves. And if you're not one of us, you're one of them. And we don't like them, we like us. And so therefore it becomes a lot more dangerous out here, just in your normal day-to-day, because you have people that now all of a sudden think that they have the right to come tell you how to live, how to do everything, yada, 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 yada. Okay? And then you have people that, because they believe this whole rhetoric and all of this propaganda about this, this and that and the other, about Black Lives Matter and about white supremacy and about all this, and now everybody's believing all this bullcrap, which is only there to divide you, to create tension, because when we're divided, we're not united, and if we were united, we become dangerous, and those that rule us do not want us dangerous. Okay, and so now we're allowing it to happen, and it's happening at such an alarming level that I have never in my entire life. So I grew up, my grandfather, my mother's father, okay, was a World War II vet, and he joined the Klan when being a Klansman was popular. Okay, we're talking about in the 30s. Okay, so my grandfather joined the Klan at that point in time. Okay, I know what real racism is. When my mom brought my dad back, he thought my dad was black because of how tan he was. He wasn't. My dad's not black. He's French, actually, French and Scottish. Okay, and so he just tans very well. He has a little bit of an olive skin, but it doesn't, whatever. But within my family, I got to see that, and every time my mom would get mad at me, she would sit there and use whatever racial slur was at hand to describe me and to ridicule me and my father. So I got to experience not only what racism was, but I got to see it in full action, and I got to understand it. And I've got to understand it from all sides, because there's been other experiences where, and I'm not going to talk about it in this podcast, but I may talk about it, and I have talked about it on my YouTube channel. Okay. But when it comes to the racial divide that's going on right now on the streets, it's always so much worse. Okay, you've got to expect everything that you have to worry about as a housed person is magnified. Why is it magnified? Because you're doing something. It's called the law of averages. It is an immutable law in nature. It is part of nature's law, okay? And this is how everything is governed. And the law of averages says that if you're outside and you are exposed, you live outside, that means you're going to be exposed to so many people. Every so many people, you're going to have these specific problems. Even these insurance companies, because they have over 100 years worth of fine data, okay, at the Medical Information Board, that they can tell you based upon your lifestyle and everything that you do and how you fill out the questionnaire, how long you're going to live and what you're not what's going to be what finally takes you out. Okay, because that is the power of the law of averages. It gives you the ability to have greater insight into predictability. So because I'm outside, I'm going to naturally have more interactions. And with society being so divided, and with the economic strife, the cultural strife, the international strife, all of the strife that we've got going on with inflation and everything else being added on top of it, people are going to lash out. People are going to act out. And the homeless are the one people that you can do anything to and nobody's going to say anything, because they look at you and go, oh, you're a drug addict. You're not going to call the cops because they're going to find drugs on you. And then all I have to do is say you're a drug addict and you attacked me, and so therefore I get away with it. Okay, that's why a lot of the homeless don't call cops. That's why when you threaten the cops, the homeless will get hostile towards you. That is probably the number one thing across the board. If you want to make a homeless person mad, just threaten to call the cops on them and expect to be in a physical altercation, because they'll give you a reason to call the cops if you're going to do it, especially if they know that they're in the right. Okay, now if they know they're in the wrong, they'll run away. Okay, and they know whether they're in the right. They know the difference between right and wrong. Okay, at least most of them do. Okay, but being out here, there are so many people out here that will take advantage of us because nobody cares about us. We're undocumented. We are considered the lowest of the low, the forgotten ones of society. Okay, as the homeless, that is who we are, and that's why it's important that some of the homeless tell our stories. But I don't think that telling sob stories are really where it's at. Being homeless, there are a lot of good things that happen. There is a lot of positivity if you work towards positive goals. If your goals and your way of life is counterproductive to society, all society wants to do is they don't want to have to pay your ticket. That's it. So are you working towards, covering your own ticket? And if you sleep outside and you cover your own ticket, nobody cares. Okay? They may lump you in with everybody else, but the second you sit there and say, I pay for my own stuff, did I even beg from you? Here, do you need $20? I can give you $20. Just insult them that way. Okay? At that point in time, then people start looking at you differently, and they can start looking at homelessness different. But between the way that the society can get away with being as combative and aggressive and just heinous towards us. I mean, there's a famous story about a guy in New York that was paid $20 by some dude so that he could take a crap on his chest in the middle of winter. And the guy said, yeah, it warmed me up. I mean, you because it's okay to treat the homeless this way. This is why the homeless are the way they are. Okay, this is why they don't have the dignity and they feel the things that they feel. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and we could talk about this for days and days and days. But I wanted to cover some of the main dangers. So we got a few minutes left before I'm going to close this out. So what are some solutions that you can offer? One of the main things is be kind. Okay, you don't know what's going on. If you see two people that are arguing, okay, did you know what caused that argument? It doesn't matter if it's getting out of control. It's not your business. And as a housed person, sometimes you need to understand that. Now, if it looks like it's going too far, you may, if you feel comfortable enough putting yourself in danger to go and break something up, you better be willing to understand what's really going on. Because in most instances, what will end up happening is the guy will sit there and say, well, this and this and this and this and this happened. And the other person will say, well, yeah, because you're a da-da-da-da, I'm paying you, screw you, da-da-da-da. And then you're going to end up walking away and say, yeah, he deserves his ass whooped. Okay, people don't get, homeless don't attack homeless. People don't attack each other out here without a reason. Okay, and so when you start seeing the homeless being aggressive, it's because they're being attacked. But the way that the news media will paint it is that we are doing random acts of violence against people. And so if you're going to meddle in something, make sure you know both sides. Okay, you see somebody with a dog, okay, don't be a douchebag and say, here, this goes to your dog, and I'm going to stand here and watch your dog eat it and make sure you don't get a single bite of it. That is cruel. That is vindictive. That is just, I threw it in their face and said, you can have it. And, I was ready to fight. Sam gets fed enough. It's not like she's starving. It's not like she needed it. That person was just doing it to belittle me. Okay, be kind to the homeless. The random acts of kindness. It's not about going out there and buying them stuff. It's about being their friend, being there. So I need somebody to vent to. I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't have friends. I don't have family, and nobody really understands my situation unless they see me on a regular basis. So having a friend, can go a long way. It can really de-escalate things. The homeless, we don't believe that people care about us. People give us money so that they can sleep better at night. They don't give us money because they actually care about us. If you cared about us, you'd know you would take the time to learn what we really needed and then help us out with that. Okay, instead you just say, here's $20. Hey, I'm going to be happy with $20. I'm not going to, but I'm going to go spend it on what I want to spend it on. And if I wasn't a go-getter like I am, I would just sit there and go, sucker. Because that's the way people are. Okay, it's when the way that homeless look at it is, there are some out here that look at it and go, okay, people, have compassion, and then they look at it and they're grateful for it, and they don't care that they're belittling themselves and so on and so forth because of the things that people do to come and go, I'll give you $1 if you do this. You guys have seen it. If you're on my YouTube channel, you've seen it during a live stream. People have tried doing that stuff. Okay. So, it gets to that point, and you just be kind. Be kind, be their friend, find out what they really need, and then help them. Because as far as violence goes, be the eyes on them, okay? Because you're stopping by and seeing them on a regular basis. You're checking in on their safety. You're making sure that they're doing well. You're making sure that they're not harmed, okay? And in turn, unlike a dog, because a dog, you can protect a dog isn't going to protect you. Okay, we have ground that out of our dogs. Okay, dogs used to do that, but they don't do that anymore. Okay, if somebody attacks me, Sam's gonna go cower in a corner. She ain't gonna defend me. She won't. Okay, and I've had to come to terms with that. Okay, but with the homeless, if you are good to them and you take care of them, they will take care of you. Okay, there are certain housed ladies that come out and help the homeless community. And if anybody acts out of line, the old schools, the guys that are there on a regular basis that know and respect the ladies, they will come to their defense and they will settle it, because it's not, even if it was a dude. If you got a housing, no, we ain't doing this. This guy takes care of us. You be nice to him. Quit being a dick, or we'll take you in an alley and we'll have a conversation. Okay, that's the way it is, but it starts with getting to know your homeless and helping them the way that they really need the help. Whether it be friendship, whether it be just a really nice meal one time. Bring me homemade tacos. I'd love homemade tacos. Okay, so anyways, guys, you know how to help the channel. Become a subscriber, become a follower. Come check me out on YouTube if you're catching this on other platforms. Everything else is down in the description. Thanks for watching. And thanks for listening, and I will see you next Thursday.